That feeling when your paycheck lands and seems to evaporate almost instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone there. It's a frustration so many of us know, intimately, the constant hustle without the feeling of real financial progress.
And what's truly fascinating when we dig into this is that the reasons behind that persistent empty wallet are often far more intricate than just like a simple case of overspending or not earning enough.
Right.
The material we've looked at points to a deeper interplay of factors.
Exactly. Forget the simplistic advice and the blame game. Our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack why financial stability can feel like such a distant shore for so many.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at the systems at play, those ingrained habits we might not even be conscious of, and, well, some fundamental knowledge gaps that can hold us back.
Our aim is really to illuminate these interconnected challenges. We want to move past the obvious stuff and understand the underlying mechanisms that contribute to this widespread feeling of financial insecurity. By the end of this, you should have a much clearer understanding of the whole landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this then. One of the bedrock issues that keeps coming up in our sources is the surprising lack of practical financial education. It's almost a cliche, but think about it. We spend years learning all sorts of abstract concepts in school.
Yeah, what's striking is the contrast, isn't it? We're taught complex theories, maybe things we never use again.
Right.
But many of us graduate without the essential skills to navigate our own finances. As one of our sources pointedly asks, isn't it a bit of an irony that we can understand, say, the Pythagorean theorem, but not how to properly manage a bank account?
Well,
It highlights a real disconnect between academic learning and, life skills.
it really does. We can often recall historical dates or algebraic formulas, but when it comes to something as fundamental as understanding how taxes work or the power of saving or just the basics of investing, it's often a blank slate. And this lack of financial literacy, as our sources emphasize, is absolutely foundational. I mean, if you don't grasp the basic principles of how money functions, how can you effectively manage it? How can you make informed decisions about your financial future?
Precisely. And this isn't just about basic arithmetic either. It's about understanding the core tools and concepts that shape our financial lives, things that empower us to make informed choices.
Yeah?
Our material highlights a couple of key examples of these fundamental concepts that, honestly, many adults still haven't fully grasped. The power of compound interest and the workings of credit scores.
Right. Compound interest, that double-edged sword. It can be your best friend when you're saving and investing, allowing your money to grow exponentially over time.
Amazing when it works for you.
But it can also be a formidable enemy when you're carrying debt, causing those balances to swell surprisingly quickly. And credit scores. That seemingly opaque number that has such a significant impact on our access to loans, mortgages, even rentals sometimes.
Absolutely critical.
Understanding how these work isn't some advanced financial wizardry. It's the groundwork for building a solid financial base.
And beyond formal education, our sources delve into the significant role of our everyday habits and our overall financial mindset. They paint a pretty vivid picture of what's often called the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle.
Ah, yes.
That relentless pattern of earning, spending, and then, anxiously awaiting the next paycheck just to cover the essentials.
And it's a cycle that breeds a constant sense of financial fragility, doesn't it? When you're perpetually just getting by, there's just no room to build a safety net, no space to breathe, financially speaking.
Not at all.
It's like running on a treadmill that never stops. And according to our sources, a key to maybe stepping off that treadmill lies in understanding the difference between impulsive and intentional spending.
Yes, and what's fascinating here is how easily we can fall prey to the allure of immediate gratification. That swipe by repeat loop, as one of our sources describes it, the fleeting pleasure of an immediate purchase, can often completely overshadow the longer-term impact on our financial well-being. And this brings us to a crucial question our sources prompt us to consider. Is this a genuine need or simply a fleeting want?
That really is the pivotal question, isn't it? And this is where the idea of budgeting comes into the picture. Now, for many, the word budget can conjure up images of restriction and deprivation, like being confined to a financial cage.
Yeah, it gets a bad rap.
But our sources offer a compelling reframing. A budget as a tool for empowerment and freedom through conscious planning.
Exactly. At its core, a budget is simply a roadmap for your money. It's about gaining clarity on where your money is currently going.
Seeing it laid out.
Right, so that you
Yeah.
can make deliberate decisions about where you actually want it to go. Our sources offer some really practical starting points for this, diligently tracking both your income and your expenditures.
Which can be eye-opening in itself.
Oh, absolutely. And then undertaking an honest assessment of what spending can be reduced or maybe even eliminated. They even highlight useful tools like budgeting apps, YNA was mentioned, or even just a straightforward spreadsheet to help visualize and manage your finances.
Okay, now let's broaden our perspective a bit. Our deep dive also needs to confront the significant weight of external economic pressures. I mean, it's not solely about individual choices and knowledge, is it?
Not at all.
The consistently high cost of living, the persistent and wages that, well, haven't kept pace. They create a very real uphill battle for a significant portion of the population.
Yeah, this ever-widening gulf between the increasing cost of essential goods and services, food, housing, transport, and stagnant income levels is a fundamental piece of this complex puzzle. It becomes increasingly challenging to save when basic necessities consume a larger and larger portion of each paycheck. And as our sources emphasize, urban living often comes with an even more amplified set of costs.
Oh, for sure. Rent, transportation, even just going out for a meal, it all seems to escalate in city environments.
It paints a stark reality, highlighting how many individuals in these circumstances are genuinely just one unexpected expense. A medical bill, a car repair.
Yeah, something comes out of the blue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're suddenly facing serious financial hardship, maybe even the threat of eviction. And beyond these significant unavoidable costs, our sources also remind us to consider those often overlooked hidden costs that can silently chip away at our finances.
What kind of things are we talking about there?
Well, what's really important to recognize here is the cumulative impact of these seemingly minor recurring expenditures, those subscription services you might have forgotten about.
The streaming graveyard.
Exactly. Those small but frequent fees, the constant temptation of upgrades and add-ons. Over time, these can collectively erode your financial stability without you even fully realizing it.
That makes sense. And then we have the pervasive issue of debt. Our source material discusses the ease with which many can become reliant on credit cards, often falling into that trap of perceiving it as, like, free money.
It's a powerful and often deceptive illusion, isn't it? That ability to make purchases immediately and defer the financial reckoning until later.
Yeah, push it down the road.
But eventually the bill inevitably arrives, often compounded by interest charges, meaning you ultimately pay considerably more than the original purchase price. Our sources aptly describe this as a buy now, regret later mentality, often fueled by societal messages that promote instant gratification and the idea that we deserve immediate pleasures.
And credit cards certainly make that instant gratification incredibly accessible.
Yeah.
But as our sources caution, that fleeting moment of satisfaction can lead to very long-lasting debt. And what really amplifies the problem is the insidious tower of compounding debt.
Oh, yeah.
It's like compound interest, much darker twin.
Precisely. Our sources provide a stuckly illustrative example. A seemingly manageable $500 credit card balance can very quickly inflate to $1,000 simply due to the accrual of interest.
Wow.
That's the power of compounding working against you, aggressively amplifying the burden of debt.
Building on this idea of financial vulnerability, our deep dive also underscores the critical importance of establishing a financial safety net, and more specifically, building a robust emergency fund.
Yeah, what's absolutely essential to understand here is that unforeseen events, whether it's a sudden car breakdown, an unexpected medical expense, or even a period of job loss, are not a matter of if they will occur, but rather when.
It's inevitable, really.
It is. And as our sources highlight, the level of vulnerability for those who lack even a modest amount of savings is incredibly significant.
It's a sobering thought that, as our sources point out, a substantial portion of the population doesn't even have, say, $500 readily available for an unexpected emergency.
It's a shocking statistic, but true.
For someone in that situation, a relatively small, unforeseen cost can trigger a major financial crisis, potentially derailing their financial stability for months, if not years.
This leads us to examine the powerful influence of our individual mindset, particularly the instant gratification mentality that our sources explore. We live in a society that constantly bombards us with messages reinforcing the desire for immediate fulfillment.
Everywhere you look, right.
Yeah, and that directly clashes with the fundamental reality that building lasting wealth is a long-term endeavor, a marathon rather than a sprint. It demands patience, consistent saving over extended periods, and an understanding that investments typically take years to mature and yield significant returns. But resisting that immediate urge, Well, that's a real challenge in today's environment.
Absolutely. And our sources also touch upon the significant role that social media plays in exacerbating this, that pervasive Instagram flex culture.
Oh, definitely.
It can generate tremendous pressure to spend and project an often inflated image of success, even when that image isn't grounded in a solid financial reality.
Right. People are frequently making spending decisions to impress others, maybe, rather than aligning those choices with their actual financial capacity and goals.
Which is why our sources frame the concept of delayed gratification, not as a form of deprivation or punishment, but rather as a strategic and ultimately rewarding financial move.
Exactly. Choosing to say not now to those immediate wants can actually pave the way for a much more secure and fulfilling financial future. It's about playing the long game.
Okay, so another crucial area that our deep dive examines is the often harsh reality of income and employment challenges. Unfortunately, simply having a job doesn't automatically translate to financial security or, the ability to meet basic needs comfortably.
No, it really doesn't. The significant issue of low income and underemployment affects a large segment of the workforce.
Yeah.
Many individuals are diligently working full-time jobs, but are still not earning enough income to adequately cover their essential living expenses. And then we have the increasing prevalence of the gig economy.
Right, the flexibility argument.
Yeah. Which our sources point out offers certain flexibilities, true, but also introduces significant elements of financial instability.
How so?
Well, what's important to consider with freelancing and gig work is the inherent unpredictability of income streams, the frequent lack of traditional employer-provided benefits like health insurance and retirement plans.
Big ones.
Huge. And the often constant need to hustle and secure the next gig just to maintain a consistent income. It can create a very precarious financial existence for many.
That makes sense.
Our sources also touch upon the persistent issue of skills mismatch, where individuals may find themselves in jobs that don't fully utilize their skills or compensate them adequately,
Right, feeling stuck.
suggesting that investing in upskilling and further education can potentially open doors to better paying opportunities down the line.
Now let's turn our attention to the crucial area of investing. Our deep dive reveals that individuals often encounter pitfalls in this domain in one of two primary ways. Either by taking on excessively high levels of risk in the pursuit of rapid gains,
The gamblers, maybe.
or by completely avoiding investing altogether due to fear or maybe just a lack of understanding.
Both of these approaches, as our sources correctly highlight, carry significant risks. Engaging in overly speculative, high-risk investments with the primary goal of getting rich quickly often leads to substantial financial losses.
Yeah, you hear those stories.
Conversely, completely abstaining from investing means missing out on the potential for your money to grow and compound over time, potentially hindering your long-term financial goals. And our sources strongly caution against being lured by those tempting get-rich-quick schemes.
Oh, they're always out there.
Always. Emphasizing that true and sustainable wealth is typically built through consistent, discipline, and long-term growth strategies, not overnight miracles.
And the sheer power of time in the realm of investing really cannot be overstated, Ken.
Absolutely not.
Our sources emphasize that the earlier you begin investing, the more time your investments have to potentially grow and benefit from the magic of compounding returns. Delaying investment for too long could be a really costly mistake in the long run.
It's a form of financial procrastination, really. Putting off the crucial steps of planning for your future and saving diligently.
Yeah.
And, as our sources astutely point out, the old adage, time is money, takes on a particularly potent meaning in the realm of finance. Every month or year that you delay saving and investing represents potential growth that you're missing out on.
Right.
Starting earlier, even with smaller initial contributions, often means you'll need to save less overall in the long run to reach your desired financial goals, thanks to the cumulative power of compounding.
Our deep dive also explores the fascinating intersection of social and psychological factors that significantly influence our financial behaviors. The pervasive phenomenon of keeping up with the Joneses, and the often insidious creep of lifestyle inflation.
Yes, lifestyle inflation.
These are powerful forces that can undermine even the best intentions, right?
Definitely. What's critical to understand about lifestyle inflation is that as your income gradually increases, there's a strong tendency for your expenses to rise in parallel.
You get a raise, you spend more.
Exactly. You might find yourself upgrading your lifestyle with each income increase rather than necessarily increasing your savings rate proportionally, which can effectively keep you on that same financial treadmill regardless of how much more you're earning.
Wow. Yeah.
And the social comparison trap is a very real and powerful psychological factor. It can be incredibly challenging to remain focused on your own financial goals and progress when you're constantly comparing your situation to the often curated and potentially misleading portrayals of affluence that you see around you.
Especially online.
Especially online. Even though, as our sources astutely remind us, outward appearances can often be very deceptive and not reflective of true financial well-being.
So true. And setting clear and well-defined financial goals is absolutely crucial for providing direction and motivation. Our sources effectively contrast the vague and ultimately unhelpful desire to just, be rich someday.
Which means nothing, really.
Right. With having a specific, actionable, and time-bound goal, such as I want to have enough saved to retire comfortably by age 60, that level of specificity provides a tangible target to work towards.
This is where the SMART goal framework, which our sources introduce, becomes incredibly valuable, setting financial goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
SMART.
Exactly. It transforms those abstract aspirations into concrete plans that are far more likely to be realized. Our sources also delve into the emotional aspects of spending, particularly the concept of retail therapy.
Ah, yes. The quick fix.
That fleeting dopamine rush you can get from purchasing something new, especially when you're feeling stressed or down. But as our sources point out, that temporary high often quickly dissipates, frequently leaving behind feelings of buyer's remorse.
Oh?
And a noticeably lighter wallet. And the pervasive influence of stress on our financial decision-making cannot be ignored either.
How does that play out?
Well, when we are experiencing high levels of stress, we can become significantly more susceptible to making impulsive and often detrimental financial choices as a kind of misguided coping mechanism.
Right. Reaching for comfort through spending.
Precisely. Cultivating mindful spending habits, as our sources suggest, can be an effective strategy for breaking this negative cycle. Finally, our deep dive acknowledges the profound and often unconscious influence of our cultural and familial beliefs about money.
The stuff we learned growing up.
Exactly. The fundamental money mindset that we developed during our childhood, often based on observing our parents' financial habits and the attitudes towards money expressed within our families, can exert a lasting and significant impact on our own financial behaviors as adults.
So you can inherit bad habits without realizing it.
You absolutely can. We can unintentionally inherit negative or unhelpful financial patterns unless we actively choose to recognize and break those inherited cycles, as our sources emphasize.
Okay, and finally, a critical component of financial well-being is sound credit management. Our sources clearly outline several potentially damaging consequences of misusing credit.
Yeah, this is crucial.
Ranging from maxing out credit card limits and consistently skipping payments to resorting to high-cost, short-term lending options like payday loans.
Which can be a real trap.
These actions, as our sources definitively state, can severely damage your credit score, which in turn can significantly restrict your access to future financial opportunities, like getting favorable loan terms, affordable insurance rates, even rental housing.
It impacts so much.
And it's absolutely essential to take a proactive approach to managing your credit. Our sources strongly recommend checking your credit report at least once a year.
Minimum.
To identify and address any potential errors, instances of fraud, or missed payments that could be negatively impacting your score.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, the overarching message from the material we've explored is pretty clear. Financial struggles are often deeply rooted not in a lack of inherent ability or, a tendency towards irresponsibility.
Right. There's not usually a character flaw.
No, but rather in a complex interplay of insufficient financial education, a lack of preparedness for the realities of the economic landscape, and an understandable feeling of being overwhelmed by seemingly intricate financial systems.
But the encouraging news, as our sources rightly emphasize, is that it is absolutely within your power to take control and reshape your financial future.
There is hope.
Definitely. The journey begins with acquiring those fundamental financial principles, setting clear and achievable goals, and consciously cultivating positive and sustainable financial habits.
Ultimately, making a conscious effort to reframe your perspective on money can be incredibly empowering. Instead of viewing it as an elusive source of stress or anxiety, try to recognize it for what it truly is, a valuable tool.
Just a tool.
Just a tool that when managed effectively, can unlock greater freedom, security, and opportunity in your life.
So for you, our listener, here's a thought to carry with you. Take a moment to reflect on one specific habit you have, or maybe one belief you hold about money, that this deep dive might have illuminated in a new way for you.
Good prompt.
What's one thing you might now see from a different angle? And what's one small, actionable step you could consider taking to explore that further in your own life?